Some Transformers don't die when their bodies do. They get possessed, a second mind, a stolen soul, or a god moving into their body and shoving the real owner out. It has happened more times than you think across 40 years of cartoons and comics, and it happens in 4 very different ways, each one worse than the last. We're going to go through every single one, from the crudest to the most horrifying, and clear out a few famous fakes that everyone assumes count and don't. Start with the crudest version, mind control. No ghosts, no souls, just a piece of technology jammed into someone's head, turning a thinking being into a puppet. And the master of it was a bug. That bug is Bombshell, one of the original Insecticons, and his weapon is the Cerebro Shell, a parasitic device he fires into a victim's head that lets him pilot them from a distance. In the Marvel comics, his greatest target was the biggest one possible, Optimus Prime himself. In the American series, in the story Heavy Traffic, Bombshell plants a shell in an open wound on Prime, and here's the twist that makes it matter. It failed. Optimus's will was too strong to fully control, but the shell still cracked the door open just enough for Megatron and Soundwave to reach into Prime's mind and siphon off the creation matrix, the godlike power Prime uses to give new Transformers life. At the exact moment Optimus was breathing life into the aerial bots, the Decepticons used his own stolen power to animate the Stunticons, a failed possession that still built an entire enemy team. He was busier than that too. Bombshell shelled the Autobot Mirage and turned him into an Insecticon slave. Over in the British Marvel comics, he took the Combiner Superior and forced that 50-foot war machine to rampage toward a human city, until a reporter literally climbed inside Superior's body to tear the shell out by hand. He even shelled a human dam worker named Ricky Vasquez and made him lick the dirt off Megatron's foot. Ricky only broke the control by focusing on the memory of his daughter. And in one beautiful accident, Bombshell fired a shell meant for Optimus and hit Ravage instead. Except Ravage was already mind-controlling Bombshell at the time, which left 2 Decepticons standing there completely mindless. Even the Puppet Master got puppeted. Bombshell's tech didn't stay his either. The Insecticons once turned it on their own side and Cerebro-shelled Soundwave, reducing one of the most powerful Decepticons to a remote-controlled drone for his supposed allies. Back in the very first cartoon, the human scientist Dr. Arkville built hypnochips that let the Decepticons puppet people, including Spike Witwicky's own father, marching them around like toys. Decades later, Robots in Disguise gave us Minitron, a tiny cybertick who controls victims by biting them, who crawled into Grimlock and drove the giant Dinobot around, speaking out loud in Grimlock's own voice with a sinister buzz underneath it. Same idea. Every era, find the right device, and even the strongest body becomes a vehicle for someone else. That's puppeting the living. The next tier is worse because it doesn't need you alive at all. This is reanimation, taking a transformer that is already dead and dragging the body back up to move again. The fuel for it has a name, Dark Energon, described as the literal blood of Unicron, the planet-sized god of destruction. Its signature property is simple. It raises the dead. The corpses it creates are called Terrorcons, and the very first one Transformers Prime gives us is gut-wrenching, because we knew him. Cliffjumper, an Autobot, is captured and killed early in the very first episode. Then Starscream pumps his corpse full of Dark Energon and Cliffjumper comes back, not as himself, but as a shrieking, mindless beast clawing at anything nearby. There is nothing of the friend left inside. Megatron cuts the thing in half almost casually and writes it off. It's not an Autobot anymore, just a mindless animal that destroys whatever's in front of it. The body is back on its feet. The person is gone. It gets so much worse than one corpse. Later, the Decepticon medic Knockout runs an experiment, mixing Dark Energon into synthetic Energon and feeding it to a captive called Silas. What he creates is a full zombie outbreak. Silas becomes a Terrorcon that craves Energon, and every Transformer it bites becomes another Energon-craving Terrorcon, which bites the next one and the next. The infection rips through the Decepticon warship, turning the crew into a horde, tearing each other apart. The episode is a straight love letter to zombie horror, Night of the Living Dead, but with giant robots. By the time the Decepticons contain it, more than half of their own soldiers have been destroyed in the outbreak. An entire army nearly wiped out, not by the Autobots, but by a single drop of the wrong fuel. This is what Dark Energon does. It doesn't just raise the dead, it spreads. It raises more than friends, too. Starscream, hunting for a bodyguard, uses a shard of Dark Energon to reanimate a fallen Decepticon warrior named Skyquake, turning a respected soldier's corpse into a silent, obedient drone before the whole thing gets dumped into a pocket dimension and forgotten. but the bleakest version is older than any of this. In the British Marvel Comics, in a storyline called City of Fear, a mad Autobot scientist named Flame discovered he could reanimate dead Transformers with nothing but a powerful radio signal because, as one character grimly explains, without its brain module, a Transformer body is just circuitry, and circuitry obeys a strong enough signal. He raised an entire city of corpses as remote-controlled zombies. Among them was Impactor, the former leader of the Wreckers, whose own mind clawed partway back to the surface, just enough to turn on Flame and put a harpoon through him. Now, before we climb to the top 2 tiers, let's clear out the imposters, the famous possessions everyone assumes count and don't. In the live-action films, the Allspark brings ordinary machines to life. A Nokia phone that sprouts legs and a gun, an Xbox, a Mountain Dew vending machine that fires cans at people. It looks like possession, but it isn't. The Cube isn't putting a soul into an existing Transformer. It's creating brand new little monsters out of dead electronics. That's not stealing a body, that's building one from scratch. Then there's the big one, Nemesis Prime in The Last Knight, when Optimus turns up with purple eyes and attacks his own friends. Everyone calls it possession. It isn't. The sorceress Quintessa is brainwashing him, rewriting the mind that's already in his head and reprogramming Optimus to serve her. There's no second person living inside him. It's his own mind, twisted. Mind control, yes. Possession, no. The difference matters, because the real thing is coming. Tier 4. This is where it stops being about controlling a body and starts being about stealing it outright, ripping the original soul out completely, and running the empty shell with something else. One villain did it to an entire planet. In Beast Machines, Megatron finally wins. He conquers all of Cybertron, and then he does something monstrous. He extracts the sparks, the souls, of nearly every Transformer on the planet, locks them away, and uses their empty bodies to mass-produce mindless drones called Viacons, which he pilots directly with his own will. An entire civilization, reduced to puppet shells flying his patrols, but mindless drones can't think, and Megatron needed lieutenants who could. So he took the sparks of 3 captured heroes and forced them into Viacon general bodies, running programs he wrote. Programs built to be the exact opposite of who they used to be. Rhinox, the wise, gentle gorilla, became Tankor, his personality almost completely erased so thoroughly that when he finally broke free, he didn't rejoin his friends. He revealed his own plan to rule Cybertron. Silverbolt, the noble knight, became Jetstorm, his old self sealed away and silent, until Black Arachnia managed to reformat him back. And Waspinator, poor, perpetually exploded Waspinator, became the Viacon Thrust, his real self trapped under the shell, though Waspinator, fully aware of it all, seemed almost relieved to finally be the intimidating one for once. This is the darkest tier because it's so total. It's not a parasite in your head or a corpse on strings. It's your soul ripped out and filed away, while your own body walks around running a copy of your worst enemy. The comics took the same idea and made it surgical. In the IDW event Titans Return, the Titan Masters are tiny beings who can detach, become a head, and clamp onto the decapitated body of a much larger Transformer, puppeteering the corpse like a grim hand puppet, and even devouring the spark of whoever it belonged to. The ancient villain Infinitus, disguised as the legendary Sentinel Prime, beheads the wise old Autobot Alpha Trion and wears his body around like a stolen suit to carry out his plan. Same principle as the Viacons, just personal. You don't conquer a planet, you just take the one body you need, head and all, and leave the original in pieces. A stolen face on a stolen frame. That brings us to the top. Tier 1. The real thing. Not a device, not a corpse, not a stolen shell. An actual disembodied consciousness. A living will with no body of its own, pouring itself into someone else and taking the wheel. True possession. And the franchise's all-time champion at it is, of all people, its biggest coward. In 1986, in the animated movie, Galvatron disintegrates Starscream during his own coronation. Body gone. Ashes. That should have been the end of him. It wasn't. Starscream's spark survived the death of his body and came back as a ghost with one hunger: to be alive again in anyone's body it could take. The first one is named right in the title of his episode, Starscream's Ghost. He slips into Cyclonus, Galvatron's own lieutenant, and Galvatron, realizing his right hand has been hijacked, shoots him down without hesitating. The ghost just leaps clear into the next body. In the follow-up, a late third season episode, the spree goes wide. He seizes Scourge, and Scourge is the one that hurts to watch because he's the only host who fights back, who feels his own hands betray him and remembers all of it afterward. He grabs Astrotrain, rides him across the galaxy like a stolen car, and dumps him when he's done. Then he flies to the severed head of Unicron and cuts a deal, a new body, in exchange for 3 jobs. steal Metroplex's eyes, tear the transformation cog out of Trypticon, and wire Unicron's head into Cybertron itself. To get that cog, he simply possesses Trypticon too, driving a machine the size of a city from the inside until the Decepticons hiding within Trypticon's own body shut him down. He finishes all three jobs anyway, earns his real body back, and the instant he has it, he betrays Unicron, because survival was the only loyalty he ever had. The Autobots blast him into space, alive and screaming. It was the last the original cartoon ever saw of him, or so it looked, because the franchise could never let him stay solid. 11 years later, Beast Wars aired an episode whose Japanese title translates perfectly to The Immortal Starscream. A lightning storm rolls over the Predacon base, and something rides the Energon down into the body of Waspinator, the show's favorite punching bag, the bot who gets blown apart in nearly every episode. And the something is him. The same spark, the same voice. The Predacons recognize Air Commander Starscream, a being dead for millions of years by their timeline. The show even tips its hand in a detail most people miss. While Starscream is in control, one of Waspinator's Predacon badges flickers, on screen, into a Decepticon insignia. The body is a rental, and the spark underneath is showing through. There's a wink in the casting, too. Starscream here is voiced by Doug Parker, the same actor who plays Terrorcons, the Predacons' own treacherous air commander. They cast their backstabber to play the original backstabber. In the end, Black Arachnia fakes a betrayal of her own to burn the ghost out of Waspinator, and Starscream's spark is hurled back into the void, still swearing revenge on every last one of them. A villain who, by any sane definition, died, still scheming, still screaming, still wearing a body that was never his. Starscream stole bodies just to keep breathing. The next possessor stole them to end worlds. Unicron, that same planet-sized god whose blood raises the dead, is himself a possessor. And when his own body is destroyed, he does exactly what Starscream does. He finds someone else to wear. In the Energon series, Unicron's consciousness is planted inside Megatron, who is dragged back and reforged as Galvatron, and over, Unicron's mind surfaces and seizes the wheel, using Galvatron's hands to do his devouring. It builds to one of the bleakest images the franchise ever animated. In the finale, Galvatron floods himself with raw super energon, swells to colossal size, and feels Unicron's mind closing over his own for good. So he makes a choice. Rather than spend eternity as the puppet of the thing he hates most, Galvatron flies straight into the heart of a newborn son and lets it burn them both away. He would rather die as himself than live as Unicron's hands. Yet Unicron was only getting started, because a borrowed body that can fight back is never enough. In the continuity of Transformers Prime, he finally gets one that can't, and the show sets the trap an entire series in advance. There's a dry run first. In the first season finale, Unicron's spark briefly seizes Megatron's body to attack Optimus, and it takes the raw power of the Matrix to force him back out. But the real thing comes later, and the mechanism is grim. Megatron, hungry for power, had spent a long time pumping his own spark full of dark energon, Unicron's blood. He thought it made him stronger. What it actually did was chain him. When Megatron is finally killed, his tainted spark can't move on. It's bound to Unicron's own anti-spark. So when Unicron rises in the film Predacons Rising, he doesn't fight Megatron for the body. He walks into the corpse and switches it on. And the show is brutally clear about what that means. This is not a partnership. This is not Megatron with an upgrade. Unicron wears the body like a coat, and Megatron, the warlord who terrified a galaxy, controls nothing. His body simply runs without him in it. It takes Optimus Prime drawing the anti-spark out and sealing it inside the empty husk of the Allspark to finally evict the god and give Megatron back his own body. The most feared Decepticon in that entire universe, turned into a vehicle for someone else. Which brings us to the apex, the one who does all of this on purpose as a method at scale. In the 2019 IDW comic relaunch, the writer Brian Ruckley introduced a spark so dangerous the story gives it a title of its own, the Threefold Spark. His name is Exarchon, and he is what possession becomes when it stops being desperation and turns into a strategy. Every ghost before him took one body at a time. Exarchon takes three at once. His spark doesn't just inhabit a body, it overwrites one, reaching across distance to snuff out another Transformer's spark and convert the victim into a fresh copy of himself. Every body he wears burns out, and when he jumps to the next, he leaves a dead, empty husk behind, like a snake shedding skins that don't survive the shedding. The comic stages it in a way no cartoon ever dared. At his peak, Exarchon speaks through three bodies in a single scene: Onslaught, Shockwave, and Megatron, three separate Transformers, one consciousness behind all three sets of eyes, finishing his own sentences out of three different mouths. It takes an entire war to stop him, and even then he isn't killed. He's caged, his spark sealed inside the body of a Titan, because you cannot destroy a thing whose entire nature is the refusal to die. Everyone else on this list stumbled into immortality by accident. Exarchon industrialized it. That's the thread running underneath every single one of these. In Transformers, the body was never the person. It's a shell, a vehicle the real self drives. The spark is the soul, and a soul, it turns out, doesn't need the body it was born in. It just needs a body. So they puppet them, they reanimate them, they rip them out and overwrite them, and at the very top they simply move in and take the wheel. Strip away the robots and the lasers, and possession in this universe is the oldest wish there is. You don't have to die, you just have to take what someone else is still using. So I'll hand it to you. Out of every possession on this list, which one disturbed you the most? The friend who came back wrong? The soul filed away in a drawer? Or the god wearing a corpse? And did I miss one? Drop it in the comments.